we are waiting. And but my point is, in the lore also, even like the men of Numenor, or like even the descendants, or even the Rohirrim men who are not exactly Numenorian blood, they get one guy can easily cut down dozens of orcs. Like
Yeah, yeah,
orcs are really weak. It's
yeah.
not
They're
like in the movies
crooked.
where they
Yeah,
actually
crooked
they.
legged. They're yeah,
So just imagine if normal men could destroy dozens of orcs. What could like these supercharged elves
yeah.
who just come from the light do?
Yeah, no, there was no chance. But again, the curse of Fëanor is what ends up. It's his downfall. He dies pretty early on, and then his sons they retain the curse all the way till the end. I mean, even when they get their hands on some of the Silmarils, it burns them. They have to throw it into the ocean. It's horrible. They all die
Yeah,
horrible, horrible deaths. Yeah,
especially because they were not willing to like concede on their oath, even when this was
yeah,
like the last two sons of Fëanor.
yeah,
But it Fëanor did get his end at the hands of the Balrog commander
yeah,
Gothmog. And
yeah. That's one of the big battles at the beginning. Yeah, but Fëanor again, he is a villain of the story. That's something a lot of people have a hard time kind of engaging with. Is like he is a villain. Yeah.
he is he I mean, look what he murders the Teleri elves.
Yeah.
He blames a Valar if and calls him to be equals of Morgoth, even though they did not force him to give up the Silmarils. They asked for it, but they did not
Yeah.
force him.
Mhm.
And not to mention, he pretty much incurred the wrath of every Valar and Maiar, pretty much you could say,
Oh yeah.
because though I think at least his brother was a more noble man.
Yeah, you want to talk about his brother Fingolfin, he's not exactly the stereotype reluctant king or anything like that, but he ends up being the High King of the Noldor after Fëanor's death because Fëanor's children have to acquiesce that he was, the second born. Yeah, at that point.
He was
So he,
second. He was the oldest from Finway's
yeah,
uh,
kids, yeah.
second wife, because his first
Second
wife,
wife, yeah, yeah.
who so he's the oldest from that line, and I think at that time because I think one of Fëanor's sons had already been killed. Maedhros,
Hmm.
his eldest son, had also been grievously wounded after being
Yeah.
captured by Morgoth's
Yes.
forces.
Yeah.
So I think they decide that they are, and by now the bulk of the Noldor are pretty pissed off with the House of Fëanor. So
Well, if I remember correctly, Fëanor, Finway's first wife is a Noldor. Fëanor is
no,
pure Noldor.
I think she was a Maiar actually. Or was it?
Was
I know
she
she
a
dies in
Maya?
childbirth.
But
No,
the
I think I'm
second wife
confusing
is
with some
a.
other.
I'm pretty sure the second wife is Vanyar. So they're not
Uh,
pure Noldorians technically. Anyways, it's looking into the
but yeah,
genealogy. This is
but
ridiculous. But yeah.
but what we just know is about Fëanor's mom. She died at childbirth
Okay,
because
yeah, that's
of
true.
the trauma that is there. So, and
Fingolfin,
he
of
kind of had a
course.
resent. He had a resentment to Fingolfin and his brother just because they're not his true siblings in his world.
Yeah, exactly. But Fingolfin is thrown into a terrible situation where he now has to basically lead the Noldor, minus he doesn't exactly lead the Fëanorians. The Fëanorians are kind of this antisocial outcast group that they work with them, but they're not part of them really. And yeah, but
That's like
Fingolfin, Fingolfin, unlike Fëanor, he's a little bit more balanced. He's trying to establish a realm. He's not just running to the gates of Angband trying to kill Morgoth all the time, like a lunatic. But of course, ironically, Fingolfin ends up having this fight against Morgoth where he challenges him to single combat, and he does wound him. He gives him a pretty egregious wound, but he's killed in the process horribly, viciously
oh
killed.
no, but one sec. I think I have that image of their fight. Just give me a Oh, don't tell me. Ah, shoot, I don't have that image in particular, but oh yeah, it's here. This is supposed to be like the fight between. But I think it's pretty important. Like we talk about the event that led to Fingolfin charging in such
Mhm.
haste to fight Morgoth was, I think what we should say is there was the siege of Angband. So Morgoth was based in the city of Angband, which was his fortress in the
Yeah.
north, and the elves, not only the Noldorian exiles that have come, which are now led by Fingolfin, but they also start collaborating with the other elves that have remained on the continent. Most of them tend to ally with them because Melkor, well, he doesn't care whether you're a Noldor, Vanyar, Noldor, Teleri. He just hates you the same.
Yep.
So they have a common enemy. They definitely are going to fight. So there was the siege of Angband, which was a massive long siege by the Noldorian elves to contain Morgoth's forces. And just in context, it's a siege that lasted 400 years.
Yeah. And it was
I mean,
pretty
that's
successful.
kind of like Warhammer 40k, Siege of Brax. Sorry,
Yeah.
not Siege of Brax, the Krieg Civil War, 500 years. But it ends with the dagger Bragolach, or the War of the Southern Flame, which is a battle that Morgoth actually did not even want at that time.
Yeah.
Because he was planning to unleash Glaurung, the first dragon.
Mm.
But Glaurung was not fully grown, but got eager and went.
Got out. Yeah.
So,
And then he got shot
yeah, so
at.
the, yeah, and his armor skills are not fully developed.
Yeah.
So, got pretty injured. But even still, it was um huge battle. Many millions of orcs, it seems, right? Uncounted is the proper term. And it is said that the Balrogs came in force.
Yes.
Now, it's never really said how many Balrogs are there,
No,
but
we don't
some
have
people,
we don't really
it's
know,
def-
but yeah.
it's probably like, I'm just gonna go because why not? If you're counting uncounted orcs, I'll just say like there were battalions of Balrogs. Why not?
Well, the Balrogs were captains of the military. So, for
Yeah.
example, Sauron is the second lieutenant to Morgoth. So he leads his own version, parts of the army. But there are Balrogs, like the leader of the Balrogs, Gothmog, is
Gothmog.
you could think
Yeah.
of him as like the third lieutenant, or he's an equivalent,
Uh,
maybe an equivalent lieutenant to Sauron in a lot of ways.
But from what we know, it's generally been that Morgoth did officially always acknowledge Sauron as his second in command.
Yes, I mean
So I'm pretty
Sauron is
sure,
special. Yeah.
and we know that the Balrogs really just don't give a shit about anything unless Morgoth orders it.
Well, remember all of the Balrogs, just like Sauron, just like Gandalf, all of
They're
these
Maiar.
Ainur, yeah, they were corrupted. They're Umar. So the Balrogs are as much as like the Istari in terms of power. They are significant angelic players in this with their own
Yeah.
goals and stuff. So Sauron is one who we know what his goals were. All of these Balrogs were just like Sauron in some way. They had some kind of desire that was corrupted by Morgoth some way. So, to give you an example, Sauron was obsessed with perfection. He likes to make things perfect. Melkor, when he was Melkor, he corrupted Sauron to believe that Arda, which is marred by Melkor, by the way, is not perfect. So Sauron becomes obsessed with. He wants to take control of it so that he can make it perfect. He actually, if you think about it, he has a good goal in some ways, but
He
his
wanted control.
yeah, yes, he's obsessed with this, but his methodology becomes, well, destroying everything so that he can rebuild. And yeah, but yeah, so these Balrogs have probably their own goals. We don't know them, of course. And as for Glaurung and the dragons, Tolkien does not explain exactly what they are, but we kind of are to believe they are nearly identical to Balrogs. They are corrupted Mire, maybe in the
Corrupted
beginning.
something.
Yeah,
Because
but
we know that.
yeah, they mate and they have offspring, which again, it's this other thing that is very confusing in Tolkien's legendarium. There are beings that are Maiar that will mate with elves. There's plenty of them, and that doesn't necessarily mean their offspring are part of
Maiar.
that group. They're like half hybrids, but then further down the line, how long does this go?